Hello, good evening, welcome to Fleapit After Dark. I love that this title's sticking. Let's hope it stays that way. I am your host, Jeremy Brown, and we are back and badder than ever. It's been a little while since we've cranked out one of these, but I'm driven to fill this year with plenty more to come. You can expect that, definitely. But in this episode, we are traveling back in time to 1999, in fact. A turning period for industry films right before Y2K. And this one I've been craving to talk about for quite a while. And it's a perfect contender for the weird and bizarre that gets covered in this series regularly. So, joining me for a hearty discussion of Antonia Bird's multi-genre film Ravenous is content creator, film collector, host of the Zoobox Podcast, is none other than Shaun Deegan, who's on the show tonight.
Martha, I need to talk to you. I need to... Wendigo. I need to know how to stop it. I need you to help me. I'm sorry about your brother, but I did not kill him. I did not kill him. Martha, how do you stop it?
You don't. You ever give yourself? Wendigo eats. Must eat more. He never enough. He takes. Never gives. You stop Wendigo. You give yourself. You must die.
Shaun, welcome to Fleapit After Dark. How are you doing, man?
Oh, not too bad, my friend. Not too bad. Thanks for inviting me on. Appreciate it, man. It's interesting. It's nice to actually once in a while actually speak to somebody from Twitter or film Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's cool. Thanks for the invitation.
I always make sure that if I'm ever reaching out to somebody on Twitter or some other platform that we at least liked each other's content enough to have some familiarity. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, I'm glad to have you on here. You are probably one of the few people who actively watches as many movies as I spend sleeping. I guess I don't know how you do it.
Oh well, it's been. Well, I have a unique life situation right now. I go to college and I have a kid that's about to go to school. So I've had a window of time where I'm at home a lot, and that's just kind of what I do as a hobby. And I'm a little bit older, and I've married. I have a kid. I'm not out partying and stuff, so I'm just hanging out at home. I have a couple drinks and I'll watch 3 movies tonight. It's gonna be a great night. That's my Saturday night.
Yeah, no, I think that's, it's there's nothing wrong with having a party or going out once in a while, but yeah, I think my idea of a good time is just kicking back and just watching a good old flick.
Yeah, see, I wish I had more friends like that when I was younger, because I used to be in a band and we used to play all the time, but my whole life would surround bars for 3-4 years, and I got all of that out of my system. And so I was now I just don't care. I'm I don't even like going to them. I don't like going out anymore. I've become such a homebody. So honestly, quarantine year I've been kind of okay with it.
Yeah. No, as we kind of said in the past, it's been a great year to just catch up on not really so much of the new stuff, which is just by and large been crap, but a lot of the older classics or things we never thought we would like. It was a good year for that, for sure.
Yeah, I had so many just first time revelatory experiences this past year. I watched what is The Passion of Joan of Arc for the first time. That old silent film, the Carl Theodor Dreyer film, blew my mind. I was how could I have never seen this before? I call myself a film fan. I'm get out of town, Charlie Brown. So I've been just going through. I spent all quarantine summer last year just watching nothing but silent films, and it was great. Because I've always been a film fan, always been a film buff, but I had never ventured back that far, to see where it started. And it's so cool and interesting to actually watch the guys and the gals that pioneered the process. You when you're seeing a shot, you see a cool shot in a movie from 1922, and you're probably wow, it's the first time anybody ever did that. It's amazing,
Yeah, I'm always hugely impressed with some of those talents, your Buster Keatons or your Lon Chaney juniors and seniors. these guys who like just had that screen presence without like any sort of dialogue. It's kind of just, I don't know. It's something that should really be relished nowadays.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, people really gotta take the time to go back. I think you would be surprised. You would be shocked, everybody at home, like how much you're gonna like it, how much you're gonna find relevant and prescient even. Like and some of the stuff has never been topped. It's like I went to see Citizen Kane, which is a movie I've seen a million times. I even named my son is like named after Charles Foster Kane. His name is Foster, but I'm not gonna name him Charlie. Come on. But just like watching that in a theater and realizing, holy shit! Like it took like people 50 years to catch up to that movie. And that's also, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going on a wild tangent here, but like that's like Orson Welles' entire career. Like every 10 years, he established the new standard, and then it took the rest of like the filmmaking community like 20 years to catch up to him. So it's crazy, but yeah, go back, watch old movies, please do it. Especially if you have a local theater that does like retro screenings. Good way to go support your local theaters that are struggling right now, and great way to go watch old movies, man. It's awesome.
Wise words, and don't go flocking over to Paddington 2, because that...
Holy shit, yeah, I know.
Well, let's get into a classic here that is very underappreciated still to this day. A 1999 film directed by Antonia Bird and starring Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, Jeffrey Jones, David Arquette, Jeremy Davies, and quite a few others. We're talking about Ravenous tonight. This...
Oh, yeah.
Neo-Western, horror, comedy, gay romance. How do you categorize this movie?
I always considered it kind of like a frontier horror comedy.
Okay.
That's the way I always looked at it. And that's interesting that you mentioned the gay romance thing. You know what? I never picked that up in this movie ever.
Same.
And I'm interested to hear your thoughts about it, because I've seen it so many times. Like, brief history, like I saw the trailer when I was a kid. I wasn't somebody that was like reading film criticism. I didn't know that nobody liked it, and I just like became a favorite. Like that summer that it came, or when it was released on video, like it was on my radar. I was like, oh, I got to get Ravenous. Ravenous looks awesome. And then I bought it, and then I watched it a million times. So, but yeah, I've heard some interesting takes on the movie that I wasn't really, I guess, didn't occur to me. So I'm interested to hear about it.
Well, not to jump too far into that take just yet, but I will say, like, I agree, actually. I never got that impression when I first watched it. And even now, it's like the only reason why I even throw that category in there is just because the actors and the director seem to be plugging in a lot. But it's just kind of, I don't know, it's like barely implied.
No, because it's like, to me, like anything that was like semi-sensual or anything like that is about like the primal nature of what's happened. They've become base people. Like this is about like a form of survival, and like there's something that is provocative about that. But I never got like the sexual component of it myself.
Sure. Yeah, we could definitely touch on that later. This is like tonally quite all over the place. It doesn't seem to really fit at home in any sort of area or genre per se. But, and that's, I think for me at least, one of the biggest draws is that it's got all these kind of imperfections that kind of go against it. It's shot well, but it's got this like very old school kind of filmic look to it. You got like these classic actors like Guy Pearce. Robert Carlyle was getting bigger at the time too. All these people that...
Well, yeah, it's like the perfect apex for them at that moment, right? Like, because Robert Carlyle is coming off of the Full Monty and Trainspotting. Guy Pearce is L.A. Confidential and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Like, and they were big. They were kind of big stars. And actually, honestly, that's the whole reason this movie gets made. Is I think Robert Carlyle was involved very early on in like the pre-production of the film and the story. Like it's something he kind of spearheaded. He had like a vested interest in.
Yeah. Well, and thanks to him too that he got Antonia Bird on board to direct. She had like a week to prepare and make sure everything was picking up after a really terrible Czech director who just had no faith in the project at all. And
well, see, I hear conflicting reports because there's one of the actors in the movie, Jeffrey Jones, he's a chatty Cathy about this movie. He's the one he spilled the beans. Apparently, it was like the studio. Laura Ziskin was like a producer, and she was micromanaging the movie for some reason, because I think she thought because of Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle, they wanted it to be kind of a bigger, broader movie. And when that guy, what's his name? Let me see if I can find his name real quick here. Milko Manchevsky, who had done like one like indie movie, like it got nominated for Academy Award at the time, had a very different take on the film. It was more like abstract and like artsy. And when they got the studio would get back the rushes, they were just like, no. The first director, after they fire him, he was shot for 2 weeks. The first director that they tried to get to hire, that they tried to replace him with, they actually brought him all the way to where it was shot, or where parts of it were shot. And what's the hell is it? Slovakia.
Yeah.
He was in Slovakia. Is the guy who had directed Home Alone 3 and then would go on to direct like Big Mama's House.
Oh, that's a great collection he's got there.
Yeah. So he must have been like a studio man. He must have been like a 20th Century Fox guy. Like, I don't see any other reason why you would give that dude Ravenous after Home Alone 3. And then Antonio Bird came on, and Antonio Bird was actually the first pick, right? That's who Robert Carlyle wanted. So she actually had a little bit of familiarity with at least like she had a vision in mind, even though she didn't get to go through the whole pre-production process, obviously. And that really sucks. Like, it's a minor miracle that the movie is as coherent as it is, honestly.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me she was kind of just jumping hurdles with all these different studio egos and then made it work to the best of her ability. Yeah. I mean, it's a classic, production history that you hear about any film that's difficult to make, but that turns out to be this long forgotten classic. And yeah, I agree. Like, the fact that it came out the way it did and it appealed to someone like you and I like so well as it did, I think that's a testament to just really wacky, imperfect filmmaking. And I always love the accidental film that kind of comes from something like this.
It's like kind of part of the charm of the movie, is that there's a texture about it that's like really off kilter. It's like weird. Like, you can feel like the stress of the production. Like, now that I know what happened behind the scenes, like specifically what happened behind the scenes, like, you can feel the tension in the script and the tone and like what they're trying to accomplish. And because there's moments of the movie that are very broad, and then there's moments that are very like intimate and subtle, and then there's like, it turns into a giallo slasher movie for the last 10 minutes. Like, it's like a Dario Argento movie all of a sudden with they ran out of blood actually when they but yeah. I mean, so have you always liked this movie? Is this something you saw when you were younger, or what?
I had this recommended to me back in high school, and this friend of mine knew I was a big horror guy. He didn't spoil any of it. He said, like, watch Ravenous. It's got these people in it. It's a historical piece. That's all I'm gonna say. Go nuts. And I think at the time I must have I didn't torrent it, but I watched it like on some free horror streaming site at the time, because it wasn't on Netflix or anything at that point. Just kind of watched it on a whim and was pretty blown away, not knowing what was going to happen or occur throughout the course of the story. And it stuck with me. Recently I was going on a bit of a neo-Western kind of kick, and then Ravenous popped back onto my radar, and I kind of rekindled that love for it. It stuck with me both visually, both just on a comedic and on a horror level, and then we'll even get into the score too. The music has stuck with me to this day.
I was actually looking for if this has ever been issued on vinyl. I was like, I want to own this album. I've been listening to it all week. Actually, like just a few hours ago, I had the movie playing in the background while I was just like kind of doing some editing stuff, and I just like let the credits play because it plays most of the score.
Yeah,
like, it's so good.
Oh, in preparation for this, I was geeking out and just like playing like a synth cover of like some of the tunes. I was just like, oh man, I'm really getting into this.
Yeah.
No, so it's just one of those films. I think it's like an anomaly for me where it's like, because it crosses so many different genres, and because I would say the most surprising thing, because it's from a studio. A studio that probably didn't have a ton of faith in a project like this, and it's surprising that it even got made. Is like,
well, it was crazy. They gave them $12 million to make this, and you're just like, I guess that's 1999 though. Like it's a different era, even though it's not that long ago. It's like a different era of filmmaking. Like we have lost the spirit of like these mid-budget studio movies that I have such an affinity for. They just don't get made. Now everything's either like a micro-budget movie or it costs $400 billion and it needs to make $2 billion to make a profit. Like where's the in-between stuff now? And like little gems like Ravenous, like a studio could be pumping out 50 of these a year if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
And they don't. Because they're all in on the big paycheck, on the big movies. It's disappointing.
It's unfortunate that these companies don't take any sort of risks really these days at all. I mean, watch even the trailer. Like, it's not a good representation of the movie at all. Dude,
the trailer, I made a note about it, dude. The trailer is one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. But, like, also, it's a White Zombie song. I'm Your Boogeyman. Rob Zombie's cover of Casey and the Sunshine starts playing for, like, the last minute of the trailer. I was like, you have a beautiful score, first of all. Like, you could have used that in the fucking trailer. But put White Zombie? Holy shit! Imagine if you were a horror guy in 1999, and you go see this thing that makes it look like the straightforward like murder mystery cannibal movie, because they don't even allude to like the stuff that goes on with Guy Pearce's character Boyd in the trailer. They actually act like he's been sent there to solve a mystery.
Yeah, and they show really the whole movie too, or every clip that you need to. It spoils everything.
Yeah, it's the Robert Zemeckis school of trailer cutting. Yeah. Robert Zemeckis back in the day, he was like, people got pissed at him because he spoiled Castaway in the trailer. And he's like, people don't care. People want to know. He did the same thing. Oh, because you had sent me a message and I haven't gotten around to watching. I'm going to watch it. What Lies Beneath?
Yeah.
He did the same thing in that trailer. He gave away the twist. Like, in a movie that is almost entirely predicated on the twist. I mean, Castaway, not so much, but What Lies Beneath, like, if you don't have that twist, you don't have that anxiety of knowing or not knowing, like, where's the tension supposed to come from? But anyways.
Sure. I mean, say what you will about, like, your M. Night Shyamalan types, at least in their trailers, they're not giving away their big plot twists, usually.
No.
But, yeah, so, I guess, how do we want to break this down? What about Ravenous, I guess, to you, has stuck with you the most, as we're, I guess, kind of talking about, like, how unique it is?
I think that's kind of like, it is the shifting tones. It's actually, I really love character actors, and the movie is full of great character actors. Even Mr. Jeffrey Jones, who's got a questionable history of the past 15, 20 years of apparently child pornography. But he's actually really good in it. You know who's like the secret MVP though? What's his name? Knox.
Oh, Steven Spinell, yeah.
Steven Spinell is so fucking good. I like really, sometimes when I've seen something a million times and like when I watch it again for doing a podcast, I'll just like hone into this very like specific thing. And one of the viewings this week, I was like, I really honed in on that character. I was like, what a great performance.
Oh yeah.
Like what a great, like layered, nuanced performance. He's got all these little idiosyncrasies and these little ticks and everything with the character. And it was really great. It was really something to behold. It's something that you would overlook. You wouldn't take inventory of something like that, you know? But the music, I think the music is actually probably the most, it kind of makes the movie because it sets that tone where it's like, and it encapsulates the spirit of like the themes, like the themes of like colonialism and Americana and like westward expansion. Like it feels that way. Like you feel it in the music. It's kind of like remarkable what I was actually what David Albarn from Blur and a composer got together and did it. And that's my biggest takeaway from the movie is just kind of the joy of the ensemble and its unique tone and the way it's able to balance those things because it feels like it shouldn't be able to do that. Mm-hmm. It really feels like it's a movie that feels like we kind of alluded to before. It feels like it could fall apart at any moment.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say like the first 50 minutes, like up until them getting to the cave and Robert Carlyle having his freak out moment, which is an amazing scene, and Guy Pearce tumbling down the hill and getting stuck in like the trap and stuff. I'd say the movie's pretty flawless. I think like it's not until like the third act where I start like, no, okay, we're getting into some more conventional territory. It feels like now I can feel like you guys didn't really know exactly what you were going to do, how to wrap this up a little bit. But what's the thing that stuck with you, like, over all these years?
Well, I would say even that to that point, or to that end at least, towards the last 30 minutes, towards the last act, I still didn't even expect to where it was going there. Like it just kind of kept pulling me through with threads. We'll get into into spoilers in a little bit, but certain characters reemerge and show up that you do not expect to resurface at all. But I did want to quickly talk about that one. This is the scene that actually I think did it for me, and it is that scene where Guy Pearce jumps off of obviously it's a stunt guy, but those second unit shots, maybe it's because we were so inundated with CGI and green screens. It looks amazing.
It's just nice to watch a dude fall through a tree.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, yeah, this is awesome. It's like when you watch First Blood, Rambo. Sylvester Stallone actually has a very similar thing, and it's actually very similar. It's cut very similarly as well. Yeah, I don't know how they did it, because apparently I remember back years ago I listened to the audio commentaries, and they did that in like 4 hours, the whole day. Like that whole confrontation on the cliff, him jumping off, them rolling down the hill, they did all that in 4 hours. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think that was like the sequence that really did it for me. And then also to pull from that point, I would say just the mythos surrounding the Wendigo in this film's context, because the Wendigo's been handled and played with in so many other stories and legends. I think it's an interesting approach here to really entangle that with cannibalism, maybe even a little bit of like vampire mythology in there as well.
Yeah.
I think it does just a cool little mix of stuff, and I think that's what made it seem so original and stick out to me. And,
Yeah, because
sorry, I was gonna say, and also influence some of the stuff I write and do.
100%, yeah. Well, because it feels like an authentic piece of folklore. Like, it has that feeling. Like, the story has that feeling. Like, this would have been a book published in like 1864, and you would have rediscovered it like later on in like 100 years later. It actually has that kind of sense and feeling to it. And it's another thing I really love about it, is that it layers on these ideas of stories and how stories are told, from Boyd going to war to the Donner Party stuff with Ives, or what's his Calhoun / Ives' character, and then the Wendigo stuff, and then the journey of Western expansion. It's like layering all these kind of what we consider today in a modern context like folklore. Like, those are things we read about in history books, and they become part of the American lore. And it was really cool and interesting that the movie actually has those kind of these different layers as what you're supposed, the subtext of what you're supposed to take out of those things. They're competing with each other as you're watching the movie in terms of like how you feel about each character, because they're almost like each defined by their own version, or their own strand of lore rather. And I thought it's really thoughtful. It's like way more thoughtful than a movie like this has probably any right to be. And that's another reason why, because it's something you can go back to, and there's always just something new to discover or appreciate or talk about. So yeah, it's awesome.
I'm definitely just a sucker for any kind of movie that accomplishes the simple goal of a protagonist that is like overcoming adversity. Starts off incredibly flawed and then reaches a position where they reach a certain like noble sort of position on life, and take the ultimate sacrifice. One of my favorite movies is, I know it might be cliche nowadays to say this, but John Carpenter's The Thing.
Hey man, same here.
There you go. It's a classic example of a bunch of dudes who are like, you know what, we're all fucked, but we can take this thing down, and we can take it down with us. We're not going to let this, we're that selfless that we're not going to, let this thing get away and destroy the rest of the world and infect everybody.
Yeah, because that's how Boyd's character basically reacts. He understands the, no pun intended, the stakes of the situation. Like he understands. He's like, this could end the world type of thing. And that's kind of what his hero's call is, kind of when he realizes that. I do say, like, as a small criticism of the movie, Boyd is a pretty empty vessel. I mean, he barely even talks in the movie, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is something there where it is hard to like chart his trajectory as a character in terms of him like making personal discoveries and realizations and moving and so when he comes to this moral conclusion at the end, I don't like that was one thing I felt like I was like, oh, this may be a little bit like unearned because there wasn't enough time spent in that first, like the first 2 acts, basically, like kind of setting that up, because he's kind of a passive character. He's kind of just along for the ride for a lot of it, you know, which is part of the point, because that's part of his like overcoming his cowardice, I guess. But it's a very small criticism, and I don't think it's like something that honestly negatively affects the movie, really, honestly. But
it's also, I mean, this isn't, again, negatively impacted at all, really, for me. But if you think long and hard, too, the whole cannibalism angle gives him a little bit of a boost for his confidence. He doesn't really kind of capture that or gain that organically. It's just like, oh, if I just eat some human meat, I'll be way more confident and could take a stab at Robert Carlyle.
Yeah, like the clues are there. They just don't draw your attention to him. They don't think they do a very good. Like when he takes over the Mexican fort during the battle scene in the beginning of the movie, it's because he's juiced up on human blood.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't, and it's easy to forget that. Like, it's easy to like miss that connection. It's like, oh yeah, no, he is already kind of like a cannibal, which is in hindsight it seems obvious, but like especially the first time you watch the movie, I could imagine like completely missing that or completely forgetting about that, because when they're like, when in the opening, the awesome opening scene when they're all eating the steaks, which I love that scene.
So
it's
good.
Like cacophony of just noise, and it makes you nauseous. And I love steak too, so like it's like makes it so unappealing. But you think he's sick because of being buried with his friends. Like you think he's just sick from trauma, from PTSD. You don't realize he's sick because he like literally can't really eat it because he's a cannibal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he discovers along the way that you become a changed man. It's not even just that you have a craving for food. It's like you have this new soulful energy that you just never knew you once had before. And I think that, if as long as you don't think too hard about the logic of how the Wendigo kind of works in the context and the framing of this movie, you're along for the ride and you can enjoy it. And as you bring up those points where it's like they allude to just the little qualities about how this cannibalism thing even works. It's made pretty clear, like enough. Yeah.
And I think, during the last act of the movie, Jeffrey Jones kind of just explains it.
Yeah.
He kind of just says it. He's just like, yeah, it makes you really powerful. Look at me, I'm crushing walnuts with my bare hands. Like
that was a fun detail, because I like at the beginning, like he's just struggling with all these walnuts and grabs like his biggest book on his shelf and smashes them. Yeah. And then he and gains that strength later on. Jeffrey Jones, by the way, not to go on a tangent here, and yeah, sex offender allegations aside, he's good in the film. Maybe I have like some sort of weird head deficiency, or I was suffering from the Mandela effect, or I thought he died years ago for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Well, he's like one of these guys, the original canceled people from like back, because when did this happen? That was like 2003 or 2004. When like he got like arrested. Actually, it's funny. I lived in a small southern town where he filmed his first movie after the allegations, called "Who's Your Caddy?" Yeah, it starred a bunch of rappers. I can't remember any of their names, but like, but he was actually I saw him across the way at a bar. I was a bartender at the time, and the cast and crew would come and like hang out. Who else did I meet? I met Andre 3000. He was in it. I met Andy Milonakis.
Okay.
Oh yeah, dude.
I still follow that guy on Twitter, but I don't know what he's up to.
But yeah, like I guess probably why you thought he died, because he kind of just fell off the map. He hasn't really been doing much, and he's the only person I could find like extensive interviews about Ravenous.
Yeah.
There's one on the Blu-ray here, and it doesn't even list it on the back. Like that, they're like, no, don't Jeffrey, don't put his name on it.
Yeah, but just put David Arquette there instead.
Yeah. Well, speaking of David Arquette, I actually really love David Arquette in this movie. He gives like he gives one of these like weird. He doesn't, not given a lot to do or whatever, but like I think he really kind of went for it. In a way,
he gave it more pizzazz and energy than the role probably called for, and I applaud that for sure,
because it adds to the texture of the movie, like the verisimilitude of the world. Like it makes it feel more real and coherent, and like and also just for a couple good gags,
Yeah,
it's a good, like, solid ensemble cast. I recognized Neil McDonough in there as well. He plays the Private Reich character. He's always that character actor that you just see in everything.
Oh yeah, Neil McDonough of Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li fame.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, he plays M. Bison. Come on, he's a big guy. No, actually, but he's one of those guys, like you said, he's like in tons of stuff, and he's always solid. You know, he's a solid working actor. You know.
Yeah, I got a good kick too on how they every time I watch it I still laugh when they introduce all of this ragtag group of just rejects of the U.S. Army, these misfits pretty much, and just he's screaming in like ice cold water. Steven Spinell's just like drunk on booze the whole these are their traits, and it's a good introduction. It's edited well. It's just like you get it immediately, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of understand the movie you're watching. It like really locks in once they do that, once that sequence is over with, because it shows you that like it's okay to kind of laugh and have fun with what we're doing. It's one of the better I guess signifiers of what you're actually going to get into. So yeah, it's a great sequence.
Well, and I think it kind of goes without saying, though, this is really the Robert Carlyle showcase. I mean, as you said, like he's coming off big, playing like Begbie in like the Trainspotting films, and he had worked with Antonio Bird, I think twice before this, but I don't know, I can't remember which films
he did one. It was about homeless teenagers, like a couple years before this. I think it must have been before The Big Monty. The Big Monty, if people don't know, is about a bunch of male strippers, a bunch of like working class dudes that just decide to have a male review, and they end up making a bunch of money. It's like a comedy, but that was like his big crossover thing. He became like a big international star after that. That and Trainspotting, I think those two movies came out the same year, so like, or maybe a year or two apart. But yeah, it was like the years of Robert Carlyle, because I remember being a teenager and Robert Carlyle was in everything. There's like a 5-year period Robert Carlyle was everywhere, and I loved Robert Carlyle too. And this is a great Robert Carlyle showcase. Like you said, it's a great performance.
There's like so many ticks to the character, especially when he goes from the Calhoun character to the Colonel Ives.
Yes.
But he's one of those actors where he could be in like the worst possible thing imaginable, and he's still usually pretty good in it. Like he will give you a memorable performance.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys, because back when I was younger, I would just like glom onto an actor and then just like watch everything that actor was in. And I did that with Robert Carlyle. Let me tell you something. Robert Carlyle has made a lot of garbage, but he's always good. Like you said, he's always good. But here, like he gets to have some fun with the role too. Like there's a sense of playfulness to like the performance, even when he's like in Calhoun mode, kind of. Because you like in hindsight when you're watching it, like understanding that he's really Colonel Ives, it's like you see like the maudlin like kind of theatrics that he's pretending to like kind of engage with when he's pretending to be Calhoun. And on a second viewing, like it's really awesome, like because it's in the performance. Like there's like a campiness to it almost. I mean the turn at the cave, like that whole build up when McDonough or Reich is down there in the caves, like looking, and he sees all the skeletons and they're counting the bodies, and then Robert Carlyle is outside freaking out. Like, oh my god, it's so good. What a great turn. Also, and when Robert Carlyle's like first big scene, that monologue he gives, like describing what happened to them, incredible. Like it's so awesome.
When I stepped inside that cave, the smell of meat cooking, I thank the Lord. I thank the Lord. And then things got out of hand. I ate sparingly. Others did not. The meat did not last us a week, and we were soon hungry again, only this time our hunger was different. More severe.
The whole story, it's suspenseful. It keeps you kind of hooked. It cuts away to like little flashbacks where they feel necessary and where you can also kind of put the pieces in your head and imagine it for yourself. Even if you see what his character does coming later on after the events of that story, you're still invested because you're like, there's more to this guy. He's very interesting. He's very captivating, and maybe it's also just the Scottish accent that he has that he bodes so well, but it's like you like listening to him talk.
Yeah, he's an enigmatic presence. Like, it makes sense that he's an actor. He's got one of those guys that's got that special juice.
Manic energy.
Yeah, and you just want to pay attention to him.
Yeah,
you just want to watch him do things.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say even the great bit where he really talks about just manifest destiny. I mean, some of it's a little literal. Like, there's a scene where like you can see the American flag waving in the background.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I meant about the third act being like, I'm not sure they really knew what they were gonna do, because I know some of it they made up, and I know Robert Carlyle, Jeffrey Jones made up what happened, his character's demise.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Jones came up with that. He was not supposed to get killed. Boyd was just supposed to kill him, like they have a fight. The Robert Carlyle and Guy Pearce fight at the end, that's completely improvised. I know they had to throw away, I think, some of the script because of the studio stuff. But yeah, that's what it feels like. It's so directly on the nose. I love the monologue though, and I love it because he relishes it, and he's campy, and he's a little. Forgive me, everyone. He's a little cunty, and it's great. Like, it's a great little. Oh, he gives it such a little, what's it, like, anarchistic spirit to it. Like, there's just something so fucking evil about him.
Well, even how he kind of is under the guise of this kind of false prophet sort of character too. He's constantly holding that cross. Trying to say that, well, there's a spiritual end to this too. Like, he thinks he is morally in the right, or in the way, like, why worry? Like, we can just keep eating the rest of our lives. That kind of in a way it's like a lazy sort of like look at America.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Because I mean, his whole thing is like, give in, right? Like, that's what, like, the kind of the end of the speech of that Manifest Destiny Western expansion speech, because he's supposed to like represent like the encroaching capitalistic forces coming in. And just telling people, like, just go along. Your life is going to be easier. You're going to be better off. Just go along. Just let me do what I want to do. Just give in. And the whole thing with him stabbing Boyd and making him bleed out puts him in like this primal survival state, right? Like, so he's like, and that's the same way I think they're making allusions to how companies will like come in and cripple a person so they have to bend the knee. Like, so they have to do it as a mode of survival, That stuff's in there. Honestly, like, it is in there, like, and I don't think it's as well thought out as kind of other aspects of the film. It almost feels like mildly tacked on, because it feels like very present in the beginning, and then it comes kind of back at the end to bookend it a little bit. Well, in that monologue, and then they're just like two cannibals fighting at some point.
Sure. It does feel a little tacked on. The film would still be very smartly well made without any of that if it didn't have to be inserted in,
because you didn't have to use the phrases.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just on the nose. Like, let it live in the subtext. Like, I can understand. Give me a little credit, Antonia Carlisle. Come on, or Griffith. I think that guy's name is the writer, Griffin. Ted Griffin. But it's a small complaint, because the movie, kind of like I said earlier, it just becomes kind of very fun and giallo-like and campy in the last 20 minutes of the movie. So it feels like almost appropriate that it's like a little dumb, for lack of a better way to put it. It's not even that I'm disagreeing with his assertions. It's just like, nothing bothers me more. And this is a modern writing, filmmaking thing. It's just like, they put the subtext in the fucking dialogue, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah. I wasn't picking up on it my first viewing because I was just a stupid teenager, but now it's more and more. It's like, okay, I get it. Very, very early on. But again, where this film's strengths lie, again, are, as you bring up, the textures, and even on a more of an aesthetic level, I really do feel the sweat, the blood, the guy's caked in every single bit of just dirt and grime. It looks like it is like literally feeding off of the screen compared to most movies that I'm fans of. Yeah,
because they went out there and did it. Like, they went out there and filmed in Slovakia, which I guess they did because the region they shot it's like the Takasha Mountains or something like that. It's a mountain range. It's only 25 miles long, but it encapsulates like the look and feel of like the American Rockies, but in a very consolidated space. So it just kind of made sense for the production. But they built those sets and everything out there. They're really out there in the mud. They're really out there in the dirt. Feels very authentic, like you said, and it is why you like that's why I love the look of the movie so much, because it's it's not sterile. Like, it reminds you of it. It's not like a Hollywood version of the frontier, like you would have watched like Daniel Boone or something. Like back when I was a kid, we would, well, not that I'm not that old, but like when I was a kid, my grandfather would want to watch some old Hollywood frontier movie with me, and they all look perfectly clean, and it's like, feels like it really takes you back to that place, that time when you're like, yeah, people were dirty. Imagine how fucking gross it would feel just to walk around all the time. I guess you wouldn't know any better, but I just think about that, just like dirt everywhere. It would drive me crazy.
Just wiping it all over the film lens to give it just much more panache.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, and even right down to the costuming, I'm not like a historian, but it looked pretty period accurate. When are you ever gonna see like many horror films that like want to really hone in on the Mexican-American War and just, yeah, that whole period and what people would have been wearing or what they would have looked like, what their hairstyles would have been, their beards. Yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on their mustaches and and just the different ranks as well. It's kind of cool that there was any attention to that kind of detail in a movie like this.
Yeah, and it makes the world feel real. Like, that's part of why you buy into the fantasy of it. Like, it's so, like, I think, a lot of people take for granted those elements of a movie. Because if something was askew, it would totally, completely destroy, like, the fantasy you're having. It would just break the reality of the movie for you. And I'm very happy that they took the time and made the effort and went out to Slovakia. God, that must have been a thing. But, yeah.
What do you make of the Martha character? We haven't talked about her yet.
Well,
that's a bit of a broad question, but
no, it's interesting. I guess this is my my sexist coming out. I was like, well, Martha, I've never really thought about her. No, I actually like Martha a lot because she's kind of like the caretaker. It almost feels like, and she has a great moment. And I know it's Knox being an asshole, but when she's like, did you find him? Did you look around outside? She's like, no. He's like, well, go look around outside, woman. Goddamn. But no, I like her presence a lot, though. Honestly, they probably could have used a little bit more Martha, I suppose, maybe to balance it out, because she's our connection to the Wendigo stuff. Like, she's the one that gives like the information for that. And although, I don't, do you really need more explanation? Because she seems like a function character. Like, she needs to be there to give them this piece of information so we, the audience, understand kind of what's going on, to introduce this kind of paranormal element. But I don't know, what do you think about her?
Well, to add to that, I mean, there's that quick sequence where Colonel Ives is looking through his spyglass and he sees the approaching military men, and he says, all right, breakfast, lunch, and reinforcements. I'm assuming she's referring to her as the reinforcements to keep bringing new bodies to come on in and consume.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a good point. See, I kind of had it different. I thought he was going to try to get one of the military guys in on it so they could have like this little industry of this fort. They could keep ordering people to come there.
Yeah. But
that makes sense too, yeah, because she could do kind of honestly have the same kind of effect and in a more low-key way where nobody would really be paying attention, She'd go grab people like David Arquette.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, even his the reveal to his death when like blood is dripping on her face from outside and you just see his protruding, bloody, disgusting stomach just like torn open. It's a great image.
Actually, one of my favorite moments of the movie is it's little that fantasy sequence that Boyd has like very quickly of killing David Arquette, and David Arquette just laughing his ass off while he's being gutted.
Dude, I wrote a dark comedy script that deals with cannibalism, and it has a sequence not quite like that, but matches that tone like perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you get so weird and mean-spirited and wacky and crazy than that? It's just like, it's so all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you ever make it, man, make sure you got a good score, because the music is really what puts that stuff together, honestly. That's why it works. Like, the more I'm thinking about it, now that we're talking about it, you think about all those tonal shifts, it's the music that holds it all together, because it adds like this sense of, like we talked about before, like Americana, but it also has like a whimsical nature to it, like an orchestral like kind of presence as well.
And then banjo music.
And great, the banjo music, like mixing that stuff, all these elements together that feel like they shouldn't go together. And I guess the guy that was the actual composer, the one that wasn't in the rock band Blur, he's Michael Nyman. He was like an experimental guy using like banjos and stuff like that, and he would give these instruments to people that weren't like familiar with them, like to try to give out like find a new texture and like these kind of old, almost like abandoned musical instruments that they're just not in the zeitgeist anymore. So I think that's probably what gave a little bit the movie its like little extra juice there. And yeah, because you have a sequence, like perfect example is that sequence, the fantasy sequence of David Arquette. Like the thing that actually holds that together is the music. Like, at least in my opinion, like that's how, like, because it's got this beautiful like whimsical nature to it in that scene too. You know, I think it's the same piece of music he uses when he's in the hole with Reich's dead body. I think it's the same piece of music, but it's really great.
I think they definitely revisit some of the tracks and give them a little bit of a spin for sure. It's one of those soundtracks where I don't show my friends or people I know the movie or family even the movie, but I let them listen to the soundtrack and then have them be surprised when they see what it's actually attached to when they finally watch it, because it always blows their mind every time.
Yeah, for sure.
So this movie was not received very well, obviously, when it came out.
Yeah.
Hard to market. I think it's got like a 40-something% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
It's got a 7.0 on IMDb though. I was kind of surprised. I think it's because of the past couple years, the critical reassessment.
Yeah, I guess that cult fan base is really pushing those like buttons and championing this movie as best as they can. I was surprised to find that Roger Ebert actually gave this 3 out of 4 stars. Did you notice that?
Yeah, every once in a while, man, Roger Ebert will surprise you. Actually, he always will surprise you because of things he'll recommend sometimes. But he, for all of his flaws and all of the memes and the bullshit about Roger Ebert, like, he did champion things like this. And that's, like, to his credit, because nobody else was doing it at the time. It was not fashionable to be saying you liked Ravenous, I'm glad I was just insulated from it. When this came out, I was like 12. So I was just insulated from, I didn't read or watch movie reviews and stuff like that. So, and it was a pre-internet era, if you can believe it, or pre what we know as the internet. And I just thought it was awesome. I just thought I had found an awesome movie. Like, and I'm going to watch it. I made all my friends watch it. Made my dad watch it. Oh yeah. I've been beating the Ravenous drum since I was 12 years old. I'm basically Ravenous's #1 fan.
There you go. And usually people end up being very surprised if they have. If anybody who's listening to this right now has not seen Ravenous, I don't know why you made it this far, but
hey, but listen, it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. Honestly, if I heard people talking about it like this, it would probably make me want to watch it, which has happened several times. I mean, that always happens to me. But
yeah. No, I always, especially if it's I'll like, if it's a film I haven't seen before and I'm listening to other people talk about it like in depth, I'll hit a certain point where I know I can just kind of instinctually tell they're gonna get into spoilers, and they'll be like, all right, I gotta see this right now.
Well, that's actually, I had never seen The Duelist, and then you had Fleapit After Dark. You did with Bloom Online, Jerry Bloom.
Yeah. And
so I actually watched it because I wanted to listen to your conversation, and also I was like, why haven't I seen The Duelist?
Yeah, that was one of those. Again, I was trying to like preface that, like, it's been on my list forever. Like, I needed an excuse to get around to finally watch it, and then again, one of those 2020 experiences where you're just kind of blown away. You're like, damn, they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dude, I saw Wages of Fear for the first time. Are you familiar with the movie Wages of Fear?
Yes, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm a huge.
Put it on the list.
Yeah, I'm a huge Sorcerer fan, so I gotta check that out.
Oh, dude, it's just Sorcerer but better. Like, honestly, and I love Sorcerer. And I never knew. I went for most of my life not knowing that Sorcerer was a remake of Wages of Fear. Because I'm a big Friedkin fan. So like, but I just never. I don't know why. I just never looked it up. Never thought about it. And then I saw the old French movie, and it's incredible. It was another one of those things. I'm like, what the fuck am I wrong with me? Like, why? Damn. One of the great things about the streaming age, though, is that you can easily have access to them. Whereas
Yeah.
before it was like, do I want to spend $40 on this Criterion DVD? No, I don't. I don't have any money.
Well, I know you and many other content creators in our more film-related social circles all have been really pleased overall with Amazon lately. They've got a huge kind of library of just a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Dude, they got the weirdest, off-the-wall, strangest shit on there. They have all like a bunch of shot-on-video crappy horror movies, like from the late 80s and early 90s. Like things that are beautiful garbage. Like I love watching that stuff. Like I love the aesthetic. It reminds me of like when I was a teenager shooting on high-8 tapes. Like, you know, I love that. I love watching movies like that. But yeah, Amazon's got like a very deep bench. If you're willing to look, they're there, you know? Also, every generic, mediocre thriller from like 1982 to like 1997 is
Oh
on
my God,
Amazon
yeah.
Prime. Watching a lot of Brian Dennehy films lately with James Woods movies. Didn't you say you watched Cop?
I did see Cop. I watched that in college on a whim when it was on YouTube for free. I was like, okay, let's
Yeah.
watch Cop.
Also, YouTube's another great resource. You know, if you can't find something's out of print and not available anywhere, a lot of times somebody has put it on YouTube. I've watched a couple movies in the past year that was the only place, like old VHS rips, because it was never made it to DVD or Blu-ray.
I think of like classic examples like my stepmom, just because she's a fan of the film, but she got a special DVD cut of A Song of the South.
Oh, okay.
Because it never hit DVD. It stayed on VHS and then went to the Disney Vault, and hasn't emerged really since.
Oh, dude, my mother-in-law did the same thing. She owns a fucking bootleg of that. Because it's something from their childhood, right? Like, it's something they have an affinity for. It's not, I don't know, people get really out of control with that stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, like,
same, yeah.
but, like, yeah, that's why they want to. Imagine having to get a black market Disney movie. Like, there's some guy in his house, like, up-resing it to 4K as we speak, being like, on a Facebook marketplace, being like, message me, $25 plus shipping.
Well, and you understand just like the plight for physical media is like, get as much as you can now before it's all like removed or changed or altered or history gets rewritten.
I've got a little squirrely because now anytime I see a 20th Century Fox logo, I'm like, should I buy that? Because now that they're owned by Disney, I'm like, is this ever gonna be available again? I bought a bunch of like these like really not great like noir movies from the 1940s, which has some interesting actors and they're cool for like posterity to have. Because I'm like a psycho like that. I'm like, nah, I don't really like this movie, but I'll buy it. But yeah, now anytime I see like the 20th Century Fox logo, I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta get this.
They changed the logo recently, right? Though, isn't it now like 20th Century Studios or something?
It's this awful, ugly ass, like, their box art is awful. Like, because they do those obnoxious things that Disney does too, where they have like these, like, half the art is like covered by like a thing that says like Blu-ray digital plus digital, and then down in the corner it's like, watch it on all of these devices. Like, why do you got to put that on the box, dude? Why do you put it as an insert in the goddamn box? Like, don't do this, please.
And at least have it like fade. Probably don't make it look like it's just plastered on there, as if you just.
Dude, it's
didn't give it-
obnoxious. Because I bought a couple like 4Ks. It was like right after all that the shift happened. I think I bought Ad Astra, and I was like, it was the first time I'd ever seen it look like that. I'm like, oh my god, it like makes me depressed. And they shouldn't. I guess that's just a collector's mentality, though. It's like the aesthetic of it is just like. Actually, I saw what's his name, Low Res Wonder Bread. Everybody should go out and support his movies. Raising money for his movie right now to finish his movie. You can't buy Arrow releases because of the rainbow logo on the bottom. I was like, I'm not that crazy, but
Dude, I have Audition, the Arrow version on Blu-ray, and I'm like, I'm flipping through both cover sleeves. I'm like, this cover sucks.
oh, dude, yeah, I saw that. I saw that you said that because were you watching it on the last drive-in?
Yeah, I rewatched it. It's weird because like I never know what Joe Bob's gonna pick, and I had already watched Audition again like a few months prior,
Yeah,
so
dude,
it's like
I had just bought it. I had just bought it during like a sale, an Arrow sale, and I was just like, motherfucker, like, Now I'm watching it because I hadn't watched it yet, but I was like, but my wife, like every once in a while, will hang out and watch The Last Drive-In, and she was like, or she wanted to watch it, so we were locked into watching it on like Shudder's awful streaming artifact crazy website instead of its pristine like 2K restoration or whatever, as good as you could make Audition look on Arrow. But yeah, it happens to me all the time, dude. Like I'll buy something, well, I can't get a hold of this anywhere, and then the next day it's on Netflix or whatever. But
yeah, well, speaking of covers that don't spoil anything about the movie, I'm looking at my DVD copy of Ravenous I've had for years. Look how just like hideous this is.
Oh yeah, that's a worse one than the original one. The original one's like like 3 heads and a knife on a black cover, and it says Ravenous. Dude, you want to see the original cover? You want to see what like this? It's just the abstract mouth. I know people at home, you can't see this.
Yeah, that one's fine. That one's pretty good.
No, I definitely prefer that, but at the same time, also does not tell you anything about the movie. But I hate that, dude. I'm with you. I cannot stand ugly floating heads.
Yeah,
I hate it.
No, yeah,
the
floating head one is like a classic example of just like, oh, did a 3rd grader just learn how to use Photoshop for the first time and didn't complete their assignment?
You know, it's kind of crazy because I've talked to people that were like involved in like artwork and stuff like that for DVD covers and stuff. It's because of Walmart.
Oh,
because Walmart is the biggest seller of DVDs and Blu-rays, believe it or not, in the country. And they need the recognizability as you walk by casually. So they just plaster a movie star's heads, like, just make their heads big. That's all we care about. Just get somebody to come over and pick this up. So
I've noticed something like that. I guess to a lesser extent, like in Target, like they have those like those, I don't know, factory produced covers that they put on classic, like Wizard of Oz or The Shining or something. It's just like, this is
the
an
pop art.
Yeah, it's like, come on, what are we doing here? I hate shopping in Target, period. But it's like when I encountered the movie section, I'm just like, oh, I'm in for a ride here.
Oh, I know. It's like, I know we're on a little bit of a tangent here, but yeah. I mean, physical media shopping at stores is so depressing. I went to Best Buy for the first time in like 9 months the other day. So I guess maybe I'm the problem. They have one aisle. They have one row of movies now. That's it. Just one aisle, and then there's like little random kiosks. But I was like, that's so depressing. It's over, guys.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna be paying through the teeth for fucking boutique like copies of Double Dragon.
Yep.
It's gonna be the only way to get it. Which, yeah, I do own that because I have a problem. But
sure. No, we all do. I think there's a tale to be said there about the classic film collector.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's diverting back to Ravenous. Is there anything else we can really cover? I think we've said quite a bit already, but there's I don't know. It's just so good.
No, it is. It's great, and there's like, I think we've covered pretty much like most of like what you could, the broad topics to talk about it, and also we got into a lot of specifics too. But because it's a very kind of simple movie, and the things that you appreciate it are almost like the way it feels and the texture of the movie. Like, it almost like it's kind of more in the tone, and like that's the kind of thing that is more interesting probably than the actual story itself. Like, I don't know if the story on like repeat, like I don't know if I would have been coming back to this year after year if it was just that story and it wasn't like made in the way it was. It wasn't put together the way it was. Like, that story just is not. It's a very basic cannibal switcheroo story. Like, it's not even that complicated or complex. But there is something special about the way it was put together. Like, and that's so even if you know all the whole story, even if you've, for some reason, like Jeremy said, like you've listened to this far and you've never seen it, I'll watch it because it's an experience. It is in a true like cinematic fashion, and rather than just being a cool story, you know.
Well, and any film that can elicit a reaction of both uncomfortable, on edge, but also, you know, busting a gut laughing and not quite being able to hone in on one single tone or feel or vibe, if you want to call it that, from the film, it's going to deliver on that. And it delivered on that in my first viewing, and it continued to do that on repeated viewings. It's quite a gem that's so unique also to the time that it came out, where there was just still a period around that a grace period where they were still taking some risks, some bold risks, getting a little gory, going kind of zany and weird, and yeah, just telling a cool folklore kind of story in a time period that you just don't see genre-wise handled this way. And props to everybody involved and for actually giving a shit, and making it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a labor of love. And I know that it was even very compromised. Antonio Bird, I think she said a little bit, like, she's like, even coming in as the replacement, she also had problems with the producers too. They're constantly kind of fighting for her vision, or create her vision, trying to figure out what that vision was. But also R.I.P. to Antonio Bird. She actually passed away like very suddenly, like years ago. Mm-hmm. It was interesting because I used to, well, not really interesting to me. I used to write like a crappy blog just to like kill time back in the day. And the day she died, I actually wrote like a little blurb about her and the movie. I was like, oh wow, yeah. So you took me down memory lane a little bit, my friend. Thank you.
Nice. No, we need more people to write, make videos about this film, essays, anything. Just because.
Yeah, there's only really one like big one on YouTube.
Yeah. I was actually like trying to, in preparation for this, like just trying to see if there was just anything like scattered online, and there's not a whole lot. It's pretty.
It's on a ton of lists of like movies that were like hidden gems. Like it's on at like post 2017, like it's on like 1,000 lists. But there's nobody been on like YouTube that's done like a dissection of the film, except for this one person. And I thought like their takes were a little like askew, like because we briefly mentioned earlier about the gay romance subplot. That was the first time I had ever heard that.
Yeah.
Like that there was like homoerotic overtones. And maybe it's there. Maybe I was just like blind to it. I don't know. But I don't think he didn't make a very good argument. He kind of just said like, yeah, it's there. Can't you see? Like he's licking his fingers. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. Okay, man.
Yeah, Robert Carlyle's giving Boyd the weird eyes, or it's just like I guess it's there. I don't know. Yeah.
But it was never like, to me, it was never like a sexual thing. It was like, I have found another.
Yeah.
He kind of identifies in Boyd that like, oh, you've had the taste. Like, its potential, its power. Like, and why aren't you as intoxicated with it as I am? Like, it's more just this primal, like, well, I guess like sexuality is also primal, but it feels more like survival primacy rather than like a sexual primacy. But that's, I don't know.
It's got an animalistic quality to it, yeah.
Yeah, he's like he's a fucking animal. Like that's what they're reducing themselves down to, this very like basic human needs,
And I do find it funny, and yeah, obviously there were a lot of accidents made, especially towards the third act, and a lot of improvisation. But even just the fact that Robert Carlyle's character is so entranced with Guy Pearce and wants him to join the fold, even after everything they've been through, and clearly there's like a rivalry on Guy Pearce's end. It's like that's fascinating. I think there's just something.
Sure, yeah, maybe it's just something that was like underexplored, and it could. I mean, even I suppose, I don't know. There's because like the final moments of their characters when they're like, laying in like the giant bear trap. I don't know what kind of trap it is. Looked like a bear trap, but very big. And he's like, and I love the moment too. He looks at him. He's like, if you die first, I'm gonna eat you.
Yeah.
But if I die first, are you gonna eat me? Which seems like to be more of like a moral quandary than like a innuendo thing. Because they had set that up, at the top of the third act with his monologue and stuff, where they're basically like, oh, now we're like good versus evil, and this is about a moral and ethical question about like, if you discover this kind of power, like, should you indulge in it? But I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe that's just like I said, it's a big old bigot.
Yeah, I one too many times. I always feel like I'm quite the same. No, that's one other thing I did want to bring up is that there's a lot of funny lines that are just kind of said in passing throughout this whole movie. Even the opening quotes, like it starts off, I wrote this down, he that fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. Immediately follows it up with eat me, anonymous.
Yeah, it's great. Which is another great like little clue to what you're about to experience, what you're about to watch, like little tone setter. I mean, Robert Carlyle literally has like movie guy lines. That is so annoying. Like honestly, that stuff, there's a few lines he has that does actually take me out of the movie a little bit. and that was one of them. It's like a false beat almost, but I let it go because I liked the sequence overall. We didn't talk about the best line of the movie though, Jeremy. We would be remiss if we didn't mention this. That's Jeremy Davies doing a Jeremy Davies performance the only way he knows how. He says, "He was licking me." It is the best line reading ever. I love it. I want it. Actually, after I was watching, I was like, man, I gotta make that into like my text message notification sound. I was like, shit.
That would be amazing. Now he says it not once, but like he starts shouting that line, and in a weird way, kind of sells it. It's like, all right, that's
he does. Well, if Jeremy Davies is good at anything,
sure,
it's being squirrely and afraid. Like, actually, we didn't talk about Jeremy Davies. He's actually really great in this movie, and he's got like a nice little bit of an arc. They give him enough little character bits work to do. I love that he's like writing a gospel hymn.
Yeah,
and everybody's annoyed with him because of it. Just some great like little character moments, and the movie's full of stuff like that, like just these little beats that don't have to be there, but it really kind of invests you in what you're watching and in the characters and their future plight.
Yeah, if you want to follow just like what's the screenwriter's name again, Ted Griffin. Yeah, if you just want to follow like some basic screenwriting principles, it's like just set up your world, set up your characters in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes or so, and just like let us be immersed, and it does it really well. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, everything leading up, like I said, like I think it's like everything leading up to the cave, the reveal at the cave is like perfect. I think it's perfectly paced. Not to say that I don't like the rest of the movie, like I said, but it's perfectly paced, and it introduces you to the world. You understand who the characters are. Like you're a little bit invested in everybody. You get to know a little bit about everybody. So they feel like well-rounded and real. Also, introducing you to the setting, like we talked about earlier, and just like kind of the grit and the grime of it, like the reality it felt like that the characters were in. Yeah, it's a special movie. I think I'm glad that it had a critical like reappraisal, but at the same time, it was cool for years to be like, wow, you've never seen Ravenous? Okay, buddy. Like, it was like being a kid and you find like a cool band that nobody knows about, and then they like make a hit record and everybody likes them. Like that's, I guess I was selfish in that way.
Yeah, and I sometimes fall into those trappings where, I feel like I'm the cool guy in the room who likes this one movie that nobody's heard of, and then once it gets more and more popular, I get an ounce bummed out. I'm like,
it's like, dude, I told you to watch that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and now some asshole on the internet says it's good, and now you're gonna watch it? Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I just get so butthurt, Yeah, I think that just about sums up Ravenous. Where would you say of how many? I don't know, this is a weird question. How many cannibal films or cannibal-themed films are you familiar with, have watched, have liked, and where would you rank Ravenous among that group? And you could throw in, Italian films like
I've seen
Holocaust.
I've seen all of those, like Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal, etc. They're all called Cannibal something.
Ferox.
A lot of Ferox, thank you. A lot of them do bleed together because they're the same. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust made a pretty big impact on me because it's a pretty shocking movie. Even by today's standards, it's pretty shocking. And then, wow, there's more cannibal movies like in the 90s.
Well, even look at something not too recent, but like from 2015, like Bone Tomahawk is a classic example.
Actually, Bone Tomahawk would make a great pairing with this movie. Bone Tomahawk is like the more straightforward, serious version of this movie. It is more of the neo-western, I think, version of the movie, which I love. I mean, I love S. Craig Zoller.
Yeah, same.
And that was his first flick, and I think it would make a great double feature. Like, so if you're out there, Joe Bob, Ravenous and Bone Tomahawk, get on it. Call the Shutter people.
And both star David Arquette.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in like kind of similar roles too. Because David Arquette's the guy with Sid Haig.
Yeah,
he gets killed. I almost like kind of don't look at it as like a traditional cannibal movie. Like we kind of said before, it's almost got more of like almost like a vampire kind of vibe to it. I would rank it pretty highly. I mean, it's hard to say because it's hard for me. I always have a hard time ranking these things because I feel like something like Ravenous its goals are so wildly different than most like horror cannibal movies. Like it's just not interested in the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to categorize them, but I would definitely put it at the top of my pile.
Sure.
It would be like in the top 3 for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, what about you? What do you think?
Well, you can even put it in the realm of like, we didn't touch on this yet, but like even addiction is kind of like brought up a little bit too. Like,
Yes, that's true.
you know, this drive that, you know, your cannibalistic instincts give you, where you constantly, as they bring up in the movie, like a cannibal or the Wendigo, he just keeps taking and taking. He never gives.
Yes.
You know, it's just like constant consumption, and it's just, you know, you could relate that to drugs. You can relate it to alcohol. Just about anything that anybody could get addicted to.
Well, exactly, because it goes back to the kind of the themes of the story of being about survival, about this primal need to survive. And then when you're addicted to drugs, or you're an alcoholic or whatever, that's how you feel. You feel like you need this thing to be able to move on, or move forward rather, stay alive. You know. So what are some of the cannibal movies? Like, you seem like you probably are a little bit more off the hand, like would know some titles.
Well, yeah, we brought up some good ones. I'm trying to think of a few others. What's that one movie? It's like an airplane crashes in like the Alps or something. And
Alive.
Alive, yeah, that's like, I guess that's
Actually,
technically.
Alive would be technically probably a little bit more in the realm of this, right? I mean, granted, they don't become like cannibal supervillains, but they have to. They are faced with that situation where it's like, am I going to eat a person? It's only actually a very small part of the movie, but it's the part that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hard pressed to think of any like other major ones like offhand. Maybe Silence of the Lambs is a classic, I guess, for everybody. The Hannibal Lecter.
The Hannibal Lecter
character.
series.
Yeah. But yeah, I was even thinking of like a prospect, because again, the movie like is making these very on the nose points about like America eating itself. It's like, well, if one day in the future it's like, let's normalize cannibalism and cannibal lives matter or what.
Dude, you'd be surprised. It wouldn't surprise me. Along enough timeline, anything is possible.
Exactly.
Actually, it's got a. I don't know if you. I know it's not popular to like Trey Parker and Matt Stone these days, but I don't know which Cannibal the Musical. That's actually kind of, because in one of the points of inspiration is the same point of inspiration for that movie, which is Alfred Packard, who went crazy and engaged in cannibalism, but actually got off. Didn't go to jail. He actually lived through that experience and did not go to jail. Maybe I haven't seen enough. Delicatessen is excellent.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
I think you like that. Jean-Pierre Jeunet from the Caro and Jeanette team, the old French movie there. Have you ever seen Amelie?
Yes.
I think that's with, or Children of the Cool Cyberpunk World with Ron Perlman. It's not really called that. It's called like Children of the Something or Something of the Children. It's a French movie.
Yeah. I've got one. It's not a cannibal movie per se. I don't even really care that much for the film, but I do remember there's a scene. You've seen Fried Green Tomatoes, right?
Yes.
There's a scene where they literally feed a human to somebody in that movie.
Yeah. Dude, imagine if Fried Green Tomatoes had the score of Ravenous.
There you go.
That would be amazing. Somebody that's a better editor than me, go do that, please.
I'm jumping on that project now. You just gave me you lit off a spark in my head.
Yeah, you got to do that, man. That would be hilarious. That would be really funny. But yeah, it's like, I mean, the cannibal genre is so like specific. And then when you have something like Ravenous or whatever, because you said Silence of the Lambs, I'm like, oh yeah, that is a cannibal movie. Like, never really, I don't consider it one though. I don't think about it.
Exactly.
You know, I don't think about it like that. Yeah, so it's hard to put Ravenous like kind of in a ranking with these things because it's so different. It so much does its own thing.
I think part of it is that the cannibal movie, if you want to put that in air quotes, is not technically a very cemented subgenre yet. I think it's just explored in so many different ways, and it is just plastered into different genre films. It's not really its own thing quite yet. It could get there, but it's not. As of now, it's just being experimented with constantly. You know, in other mediums.
Yeah. Oh, because it was another French movie that came out a couple years ago. It was a cannibal movie, Raw. Did you see Raw?
I saw Raw. That was actually
Yeah.
pretty good.
That was not bad. It wasn't bad. Yeah. I wish it had kind of gone farther though. I was waiting for the rails to really go off, and I was like, oh, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. This is about our feelings.
Oh god, every time, every modern movie, fuck.
Every modern movie is just like a allegory for whatever mental stress, which is fine. It's
Sure.
fine. What about Promising Young Woman? That's a cannibal movie, in my opinion. No, I'm just joking.
Well, if you want to, oh man, if you want to talk about the Oscars briefly, like that was a tough. Well, so here's my thing with that is I can, with everything that was coming out then, I can tune out the kinds of people that are like actively engaged with the Oscars and like, oh, what did Saoirse Ronan or Timothée Chalamet wear at this event the other night or whatever. I'm like, whatever, do your thing. The people that actually do bring my blood to a boil sometimes are like the hypocrites who constantly bash the Oscars, and then they have the tenacity to say, well, my movie got snubbed, or my actor that I liked didn't get the award. I'm like, who cares? Suddenly they become very invested. I mean, I don't even know if the Oscars has been relevant in my lifetime. Like, I mean, I remember being younger though, like, and just I get caught up in it sometimes. There'd be like a Martin Scorsese movie would be there or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, cool. Like, I want to see Martin Scorsese win. I'll be invested for no reason. Like, the validation of his peers. It's like not even his peers. Like, it's just a bunch of. It's like the not the Hollywood Foreign Press. It's the Golden Globes, where they literally people pay to get nominated. They pay the foreign press, the Hollywood Foreign Press, to get nominated. It's crazy, but yeah, the Oscar committee or whatever is a lot of people, and they're just a lot of them are just kind of random old people. A lot of old people in there they haven't done anything in the industry in 50 years. But which is weird that it seems like, there's such a huge political bent. It's like whatever the political zeitgeist of the time, it's like the Oscars feels compelled to kind of reflect. So whether or not like somebody's winning on the merits is never very clear. You know what I mean? And this year there just wasn't, I guess, that crop of movies that people were excited about and that made a splash. They tried. I mean, goddamn it, they tried. I wanted The Father to win. I became very invested. The Father, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's no point in ever having to hold them to any sort of like merit or validity for, what is good cinema to you personally. Like, what is, did you like the film? Did it stick with you? It defeats the purpose of the process and what it's supposed to be. Like, it's not supposed to be, like, art is not supposed to be on a scale like that. It's not supposed to be. So for the actual establishment or the people that feel like they are controlling or in control of creating these things to actually like put some sort of weird value system on what is and isn't important seems a little contradictory to like even most of the people that like win awards and go show up and get their awards. Like, they would probably say the same thing. They would say like, well, it's not really what it's about, but they all want to win. They all want to. I mean, I guess I'd probably be no different. I'm not trying to be a snob. Sure.
I'm self-aware enough. I'm sure if I had an Academy-nominated film, I would probably be like, I really hope I win.
Yeah. If you're that deep into it, yeah, it's like, oh, might as well.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and then, proceed to give an acceptance speech, which is just calling us morons. But
I know, it's so, and the whole tone is just so condescending, and you're like, why would I want to listen to your opinions about anything? You're not experts on anything. You're fucking overpaid for what you do. I think, yeah, I mean, the amount of money that's spent in Hollywood is insane, but yeah, you're not an authority because you get to be on a stage. Like, it's so obnoxious, man. And I don't know, it's like so alienating too. And it just gets progressively worse every year. I mean, fucking even Joaquin Phoenix once for the Joker, he's talking about people stealing cows, like stealing milk from a female cow. You steal her milk, you eat her babies. You're like, what the fuck are you on about, dude? just be like, just do a Joker laugh and leave, please.
Yeah. Or watching an actor slip up like John Travolta, the wickedly talented Adele Dazeem or something.
My favorite, have you ever seen the Joe Pesci one when Joe Pesci wins?
Oh, yeah.
But he just says, "This is crazy," and he just walks away.
Or he goes like, "Yeah, it was a privilege. Thank you." Just leave.
Yeah, and just leaves. I was like, my man, that guy does not give a fuck.
Oh yeah, he'll show up when he wants to. He'll turn down any other offer if he doesn't like it.
Yeah. So, oh, dude, he does not do anything he doesn't want to do. There's a great, like, I don't know if you've ever watched The Irishman or how you feel about The Irishman, but on Netflix, there's like a roundtable discussion with Scorsese, Pesci, De Niro, and Pacino. And fucking Pesci just doesn't care. He's like in his own world. It's awesome.
That's I gotta watch some of those interviews with him.
Yeah, it's great. He's a gem.
Well, I think to kind of close this, I would rather watch Guy Pearce stab somebody in the knee and eat as much meat as he possibly can to get back on his feet than watch Frances McDormand sulk for 2 hours in.
Yeah, I wish she was sulking though. She's just kind of wandering.
She's trying to find herself.
I'll come clean. I'm gonna come clean. No Man's Land, not that bad.
Okay.
It's really not that bad. I know it's become a meme, shitting in a bucket, whatever. It's fine, dude. It's like every ponderous indie film that came out in 2002. It's just we've just gone back there. It's something that all these, which is we're gonna go on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No,
sorry. I know you're trying to end it. But like back when indie became like a genre, and then studios just set up like fake indie studios within a giant studio, and they all just pumped out these kinds of movies. I'm trying to think of the name of one of them because they're all so forgettable. Like Warner Brothers literally had a wing of like Warner Independent, and then they would put out like Transamerica or something like that. Like so they weren't really indie movies. They just didn't give those people a lot of money. Like,
yeah.
And then you're indie by like the fact that your budget is small. But they didn't have the same barriers. They weren't out trying to like actually having to break down. And I could be wrong about Transamerica being an example of that, so forgive me. Do you remember Focus Features?
Yeah. They just disappeared.
They're owned by Universal. I mean, and they always were. So it's just like a way to kind of get around and also entice the cineast, the true film fan. Be like, oh, you don't like those studio movies? You go watch Focus Features.
Is this an IFC film? What is this?
Oh my god, I love IFC. The whitest kids you know.
Yeah. I think we've covered just about everything we have going on. A few tangents, which I expected. I think we could talk endlessly about physical media and it's just that whole market. It's a niche, crazy quality some of us just have. We can't help ourselves.
Well, it's also just great to talk to somebody who has the same like affinity and appreciation for film, and I kind of get excited. So I'm sorry if I was like motor mouth, because I get excited. It's nice to talk to somebody that not only is into it, like because I talk to a lot of people that are more like casually into this stuff.
Yeah.
But actually kind of has the same points of reference that I do. It's like we can there's a little bit more of a shorthand,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm 26, and like my peers generally just kind of look at me like I'm weird. Like, Jeremy, you could just stream this easily. I'm like, well, yes, but I want to have that so I can just watch it whenever I want. In case the huge streaming shutdown occurs, I have the backups.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, your router ever go out? I'm good, baby. I'm good.
Ben Franklin once said, "Eat to live. Don't live to eat." Huh? Well, it's an easy decision, Boyd. You can either famine or feast, live or die.
All right, well, that's been Ravenous, a cult classic, even more so. Just a great movie, great film, a favorite of, it sounds like, both of ours.
Yes, for sure.
And we can't praise it and we can't recommend it enough. Check it out for sure. As we come to a close here, Shaun, is there anything for the listeners out there that you want to plug? Anything that you're working on or things that you have coming up?
Yeah, for sure. Look me up on YouTube. It's Zoobox Podcast, or if you look up Zoobox, I think there's only like one other channel. It's like a German zoo channel. Zoobox Podcast, and I got some stuff in the pipeline right now where I recorded a 4-hour podcast the other day where I am now inserting clips and stuff for an audiobook, which I'll tell you is hellacious. To try to go find those clips again, buried in an audiobook that does not have chapter breaks and stuff. So a lot of fun trying to chip away through at that. But yeah, and there's always, movie reviews, general podcast stuff. I don't know. Lots of nonsense over there. I call it nonsense. It's nonsense on that channel. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Shaun Zoobox. And that's a good place to get a hold of me. If you just love hearing the sound of my voice, you just need more, just go over there.
Yeah, definitely check out his stuff. He is just actively rolling out and dishing out like content left and right. You are a busy man.
Yeah, it's I don't sleep a lot, Jeremy. I have to suffer for this stuff. Like I have a young son and a wife, so I have to do this like at night. And I'm fucking tired, man.
Well, I have this one saying where it's like, especially when it comes to a lot of the crap that I have to watch, I usually tell people I watch it so you don't have to,
There you go.
And you can follow me over at Jeremobi on Twitter. I'm also at Film Shower Productions on Facebook. And even though I get very sick of the platform sometimes, you can also follow me on Letterboxd. I do occasionally review stuff.
Oh, I have a Letterboxd too, yeah.
Yeah. I think we're both connected on there.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so you can also find me on there, same name. And thank you all for listening. Shaun, thanks as ever for coming on. This was great.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yep, this is a good topic to discuss, and I hope to have you on in the future for sure.
Heck yeah, and likewise. We'll have to connect.
Absolutely. All right, take care, guys. Have a good night.